Please stand as you are able for the reading of the gospel. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. The Holy Gospel according to John. Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from the world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "One who has bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and had returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, servants are no greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified by him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
So here we are this week, continuing our journey from Palm Sunday, and we heard some of the Passion already on Sunday. But Sunday we heard and asked Jesus to save us. Hosanna, save us. And here we are now at what we know as the Last Supper, the time when Jesus would be no more with his disciples. He called them his friends and his people, and yet he knew one was to betray him. and one to deny him. But yet he still was there. Our text has a lot to it. And Maundi, or mandate, is this new command. So today, we're thinking about this commandment. So I have a question for you. Think about in your wildest mind, what is the most uttered words you hear? So think about it, the things that you hear the most. All right, first one, I love you. Second one, you are forgiven. And the third one, supper is ready. So this study is about 20 years old, so maybe it's a little different now, but food, forgiveness, and love, I think those are cool importance. So if we think about Jesus' time, they traveled in dusty dirt roads. And they traveled by feet. They walked. They wore their sandals. Mine's a little nicer than theirs, if you could see my sandals. I'm wearing sandals today for this opportunity. But they were simple leather sandals. Sometimes something on the bottom and then something over. Very simple. Nothing as complex as we have nowadays. So their feet became dusty and dirty. Think with me, the most dirtiest time your feet has been. Like for me yesterday, I went for a walk in the woods and I slushed and slushed in some mud. Even with socks and shoes, my feet were still muddy. So think about your dirtiest feet and think about Jesus washing your feet. So it's customary for a meal that the slave would clean the feet of the people before they eat. And an interesting thing about that time, like us, we go sit at table and chairs. Well, they reclined and laid on the floor to share this meal together. So here you are, Jesus, taking his robe off and washing our feet, yours and mine, the people, even the ones that would betray and deny him. Jesus washed the feet of the disciples. Jesus humbled himself and was submissive. But more importantly that day, Jesus ended this dinner, our text today, he wanted to teach them something. When we have just a little more time with someone, how do we know what to say? And so Jesus wanted to share the heart of his ministry, the heart of who he was, the heart of the gospel, and why it was that this night, knowing what was to come tomorrow, or even in a few hours, he wanted them to know the greatest commandment. The greatest commandment, the greatest thing we could do is love. And he invited them to serve one another. So participating is an act that expresses our hope. It reminds us of our call to serve others. It also reminds us of our call to humility, not only as we wash one another, but as we open ourselves to allow our own hands to be washed. In a little while, we are going to do an exercise of washing our hands. And I know this is weird because we're in separate places, but I'll get to that in a minute. So in these last moments of Jesus' life, right before the betrayal, the trial, persecution, suffering, and death. Here we are. This is a chance that he has to impart knowledge on us. He could have said anything. You know, all that theology stuff we like to learn about and atonement theory. Do you think Jesus talked about that today? No. I wish I didn't spend as much time learning that as I did. But the two things he does here, well, three actually. He washes their feet, shares a meal, and shows them love. 3 things. And I think those 3 things sum up his life here on earth. He gives meaning to a simple meal, an act that they and we can perform to remember him, even though we're not sharing the meal together. Here, you still share your meals with your family. This simple meal of being together in community. The word Holy Communion, the word to commune is to be together. An important part of Maundy Thursday is to be together. And we talk about to share one's intimate thoughts or feelings, especially on a spiritual level. So here we are, Jesus and the disciples sharing this meal, being with one another. And that's my hope that as a family, those who you consider your family, you can sit and share a meal together. And remember the community. Remember Jesus' last meal. So just a thought, how long has it been since you heard those 3 things spoken to you that we talked about at the beginning? The three phrases, I love you. Jesus says to us this night, not just says, he shows us that he loves us. And we're also reminded of God's grace in the fact that we are forgiven. A little while ago in the service, we were reminded with hands on our head that by the power of Jesus, your sins are forgiven. That's nothing to do with me or you. That's all through somebody else. What Jesus has done. And then the third one, supper is ready. Supper is always ready. And yes, we're not sharing the meal right now during this time, and it's hard for some of us. It's hard for me. I want to share the meal with you. But God is present in all our meals, and we can remember Jesus' life and death when we share the intimacy of being together with our family. So, I also was thinking how in this time, the mandate from Jesus tonight is to live out our mandate, is to serve our neighbor by love, right? We are called to love our neighbor. And, it's not the same as if we were here, we can exchange hugs and share peace with each other. But how do we live out this mandate?